My name is Valeria. I am 34 years old, and I never thought I would have to beg my own parents for help. That evening, I was sitting on the living room floor with my twins Emma and Lucas, building a tower out of colorful blocks. Their laughter filled the room, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. I always believed that no matter how hard life got, family would be my safety net. But sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most become the source of your deepest pain. I was about to face a major surgery, and I needed someone to care for my children. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my parents. Before I share what my parents did, I want to know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe if you believe family should be there for each other. Now, let me tell you what happened. Let me give you some background so you can understand how I ended up in this situation. I am a single mother living in a small two-bedroom house in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. The house is modest, nothing fancy, but it is home. The rent is affordable, and the neighborhood is safe enough for my kids to play outside. I work as an accountant for a mid-sized company downtown. The pay is decent, but after childcare costs, rent, utilities, and groceries, there is not much left at the end of each month. My daily routine is the same every single day. I wake up at 5 in the morning before the sun rises so I can have a few quiet moments to myself before the chaos begins. I shower, get dressed, and then I start preparing breakfast for Emma and Lucas. By 6:30, I am waking them up, helping them brush their teeth, picking out their clothes, and making sure they eat something before we head out the door. I drop them off at daycare by 7:45, and then I drive another 30 minutes to get to work. I spend 8 hours at my desk staring at spreadsheets and numbers, and then I rush back to pick up my kids before the daycare closes at 6. We get home, I cook dinner, we eat together, I give them baths, read them stories, and by 8:30, I am tucking them into bed. By 9, I am so exhausted that I can barely keep my eyes open, but there are always dishes to wash, laundry to fold, and lunches to prepare for the next day. Emma and Lucas are the light of my life. They just turned 4 years old, and they are complete opposites in the best possible way. Emma is outgoing and talkative. She loves to draw and paint, and she asks me 1,000 questions every day. Why is the sky blue? Why do birds fly? Why do I have to eat vegetables? Lucas is quieter, more thoughtful. He loves building things with blocks and solving puzzles. He can sit for an hour working on a single puzzle, completely focused. They are my everything. Every sacrifice I make every long day, I endure it, is all for them. Now let me tell you about their father. I met Derek when I was 27 years old. A mutual friend introduced us at a barbecue, and I thought he was charming. He had this easy smile and a way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. We dated for 2 years, and he was romantic and attentive. He would surprise me with flowers, plan weekend getaways, and talk about our future together. He wanted kids, he said. He wanted a family. So when he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. We got married in a small ceremony with close friends and family, and I got pregnant with the twins shortly after. Everything changed when Emma and Lucas were born. Derek seemed overwhelmed from the start. He complained about the crying, the sleepless nights, the constant demands of two newborns. I tried to be patient. I told myself it was an adjustment for both of us. But when the twins were 8 months old, Derek sat me down one evening and told me he was leaving. He said he was not ready to be a father. He said he had made a mistake. Just like that, he walked out the door and never looked back. He moved to California, and I hear from him maybe twice a year. He sends child support when he remembers, which is not often. I learned very quickly that I was on my own. Now about my parents. My mother, Sandra, is 61 years old. My father, Roger, is 63. They live about 45 minutes away from me in a nice house in a quiet suburb. You would think that distance would not be a big deal, but in the 4 years since the twins were born, my parents have visited us maybe 5 times, and each visit lasted less than 2 hours. Sandra is a particular kind of person. She cares deeply about appearances. Her social media is filled with photos of her garden, her book club meetings, her trips with friends, her perfectly decorated home. She posts about being a grandmother, but she never actually spends time with her grandchildren. She likes the idea of being a grandmother more than the reality of it. Roger is different. He is quiet, passive, and he follows Sandra in everything. I cannot remember the last time he made a decision on his own. When I was growing up, he was always working or watching television. He was present but absent, if that makes sense. When Derek left me, I called my parents in tears. I was desperate. I had two 8-month-old babies and no help. I asked if they could come stay with me for a while, just until I got back on my feet. Sandra sighed on the phone and said, "Valeria, you need to figure this out on your own. We are not going to be your babysitters." Roger said nothing. He never does. I hung up the phone that night and cried until I had no tears left. But I picked myself up and I figured it out. I always do. The hardest part is watching Emma and Lucas grow up barely knowing their grandparents. They have met Sandra and Roger so few times that they do not even recognize them. One day, Emma pointed to a family photo on the wall and asked, "Mommy, who are those people?" I told her they were her grandma and grandpa. She looked confused and said, "But we never see them." I did not know what to say. How do you explain to a 4-year-old that her grandparents do not make time for her? So I just hugged her and changed the subject. But that moment broke something inside me. About 2 months ago, I started noticing that something was wrong with my body. It began with a dull ache in my lower abdomen that would not go away. I ignored it at first, thinking it was just stress or maybe something I ate. But the pain persisted. Then I started feeling unusually tired. I would wake up in the morning after a full night of sleep and still feel exhausted. My menstrual cycle became irregular, which had never happened before. I told myself I was just overworked, that I needed to take better care of myself. But deep down, I knew something was not right. My friend and coworker Nina was the one who finally convinced me to see a doctor. Nina and I have worked together for 5 years, and she knows me better than almost anyone. She noticed that I was looking pale and that I was moving slower than usual. One afternoon, she pulled me aside in the break room and said, "Valeria, you need to go to the doctor. Something is off, and you know it." I tried to brush her off, but she would not let it go. She even offered to drive me to the appointment herself. That is the kind of friend Nina is. So I made an appointment with my gynecologist. The doctor did a physical exam and asked me a lot of questions about my symptoms. She said she wanted to do an ultrasound just to rule out any concerns. I lay on that table with cold gel on my stomach watching the screen, and I could tell by the look on her face that something was wrong. She told me she saw a mass on my ovary and that I would need to get an MRI for a closer look. My heart sank. I drove home that day in a daze, barely able to focus on the road. A week later, I got the MRI results. Dr. Patterson, the specialist, called me into her office to discuss the findings. She explained that I had a large ovarian cyst that needed to be surgically removed. She said the good news was that it appeared to be benign based on the imaging, but they would not know for certain until they removed it and did a biopsy. The surgery needed to happen within 3 weeks to prevent complications. The procedure would take about 3 hours, and I would need to stay in the hospital for 2 days afterward. Then I would need at least 2 weeks of rest at home before I could return to normal activities. I sat in that office trying to process what she was telling me. All I could think about was Emma and Lucas. Who would take care of them while I was in the hospital? Who would watch them during my recovery? I asked Dr. Patterson if there was any way to delay the surgery, and she shook her head firmly. She said waiting could lead to serious complications, including the cyst rupturing or twisting, which would require emergency surgery and could be life-threatening. I had no choice. The surgery had to happen. I spent the next few days trying to figure out my options. I could not afford to hire a full-time caregiver. The daycare only operated during business hours and could not keep the kids overnight. Nina wanted to help, but she was already stretched thin, taking care of her elderly mother, who had recently been diagnosed with dementia. I felt like I was running out of options. And then I thought about my parents. I know. After everything I just told you, you are probably wondering why I would even consider asking them, but this was different. This was not about me needing help with everyday tasks. This was surgery. This was serious. I told myself that surely when they heard that their daughter was facing a medical procedure, they would step up. Surely when they realized their grandchildren would have no one to care for them, they would put aside whatever plans they had and come to help. I convinced myself that this time would be different. I picked up the phone, my heart pounding, and I called my mother. The phone rang 3 times before Sandra picked up. I could hear background noise like she was at a restaurant or a cafe. Her voice was distracted when she answered. "Valeria? What is it? I am in the middle of something." I took a deep breath and explained the situation. I told her about the symptoms, the tests, the diagnosis. I told her about the surgery and how I would need to be in the hospital for 2 days and then recover at home for 2 weeks. I told her I needed someone to take care of Emma and Lucas. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, Sandra spoke. "What date is the surgery?" I told her the date. Another pause. Then she sighed, and I could hear the reluctance in her voice. "Valeria, that week I have a spa retreat planned with my friends in Arizona. We booked it 6 months ago. Everything is already paid for." I felt my chest tighten. "Mom, this is surgery. I am having an operation. I cannot just reschedule it." "Well, can you not ask the doctor to move it to a different week? Or maybe you could hire someone to help with the kids." I explained that Dr. Patterson had been very clear about the timeline. Waiting was not an option, and I could not afford to hire professional help for that long. Sandra was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Let me talk to your father, and I will call you back." 2 days passed, and I did not hear from her, so I called Roger directly. He answered on the first ring, and his voice was hesitant. "Hi, honey. Your mother told me about your surgery." "Dad, I really need help. I know Mom is busy, but could you come stay with the kids? It would only be for a few days while I'm in the hospital, and then maybe you could help out a bit during my recovery." Roger cleared his throat. "You know how your mother is, Valeria. I cannot make this decision without her. She would not be happy if I went against her wishes." "Dad, please. I am begging you. I do not have anyone else." There was a long silence. Then Roger said, "Let me talk to her again. I will see what I can do." But I could hear it in his voice. He had already given up. He was not going to fight for me. He never did. 3 more days went by before Sandra finally called back. I picked up the phone, trying to stay calm, trying not to get my hopes up. "Valeria, your father and I have discussed it, and we have decided that we cannot cancel our trip. The money is non-refundable, and our friends are counting on us. Besides, I have been very stressed lately, and I really need this vacation." I could not believe what I was hearing. "Mom, I am having surgery. Your grandchildren need someone to take care of them. You will figure something out. You always do. You chose to have children, Valeria, and that means you have to take responsibility for them. I already raised my child. This is my time to live for myself. Mom, Emma, and Lucas are your grandchildren. Does that not mean anything to you?" Sandra's voice turned cold. "They are your children, not mine. I did my job. I raised you. Now it is your turn." I hung up the phone and sat there in stunned silence. The room felt like it was spinning. My own mother had just told me that her spa trip was more important than her daughter's surgery and her grandchildren's well-being. I could not hold back the tears anymore. I put my head in my hands and I sobbed. A few minutes later, I felt a small hand on my knee. I looked up and saw Emma standing in front of me, her eyes wide with concern. "Mommy, why are you crying? Are you sad?" I wiped my tears quickly and forced a smile. "Mommy is okay, sweetie. Sometimes grown-ups just need to cry a little bit. Come here." I pulled her into my arms and held her tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. Lucas wandered over and joined the hug, wrapping his little arms around both of us. That night, after the kids were asleep, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I could not stop thinking about all the times my parents had let me down. This was just the latest in a long line of disappointments. But somehow, this one hurt the most. Maybe because I had allowed myself to hope. Maybe because I had foolishly believed that this time, when it really mattered, they would come through for me. I did not sleep at all that night. Lying awake in the darkness, my mind traveled back through the years. I started thinking about my childhood, and I realized that what happened with this phone call was not an isolated incident. It was a pattern I had been trying to ignore for most of my life. When I was a little girl, Sandra was always busy. She had her garden club, her book club, her tennis lessons, her lunches with friends. There was always somewhere she needed to be that did not include me. Roger worked long hours, and when he came home, he just wanted to sit in his recliner and watch television. I learned early on not to expect too much attention from either of them, but there was one person who always had time for me, Grandpa Harold. He was my father's dad, and he was the complete opposite of my parents. When Sandra needed to go to one of her social events, she would drop me off at Grandpa Harold's house. And those were the happiest days of my childhood. Grandpa Harold taught me how to ride a bike. I can still remember him running alongside me, holding onto the back of the seat, cheering me on. "You got it, Valeria. You got it." And when I finally pedaled on my own without falling, he scooped me up and swung me around in a big hug. He taught me how to make pancakes from scratch on Saturday mornings. We would stand side by side at the stove, and he would let me flip them, even though I was not very good at it. He read me stories every night when I stayed over, doing all the different voices for the characters. He made me feel special. He made me feel loved. I remember one time when I was 12 years old, I got really sick with the flu. I had a high fever and could barely get out of bed. Sandra had plans to attend a birthday party for one of her friends. I asked her to stay home with me, and she said, "Valeria, I cannot miss this party. Everyone is counting on me. You will be fine. I will have Grandpa come over." And she left. Grandpa Harold showed up an hour later with chicken soup popsicles and a stack of comic books. He sat by my bed and told me stories about when he was young. He checked my temperature every hour and put cold washcloths on my forehead. He stayed until Sandra came home late that night, and even then he did not leave until he was sure I was sleeping peacefully. I found my old diary a few years ago while cleaning out some boxes. I opened it to a random page and saw something I had written when I was 13 years old. I wish Grandpa Harold was my dad, or my mom, or both. He is the only one who really loves me. Reading those words as an adult broke my heart because I realized that even as a child, I knew the truth about my parents. Grandpa Harold is 89 years old now. 5 years ago, after Grandma passed away and he fell and broke his hip, he moved into a nursing home called Sunny Meadows. It is about 2 hours away from where I live. Sandra and Roger rarely visit him. They always have excuses. It is too far. They are too busy. The traffic is terrible. But I make it a point to see him at least once a month. It is not easy with two young kids, but I load Emma and Lucas into the car, and we make the drive because Grandpa Harold deserves to be visited. He deserves to be remembered. Despite his age, Grandpa Harold is still sharp as a tack. His body might be slowing down, but his mind is as clear as ever. He has a wonderful sense of humor, and he loves hearing about Emma and Lucas. He sends them handwritten birthday cards every year with a $5 bill tucked inside. The kids treasure those cards. They have every single one saved in a special box in their room. As I lay in bed that night after my parents refused to help me, I suddenly felt an overwhelming urge to talk to someone who would actually listen, someone who would actually care. I decided to call Grandpa Harold the next day. Not to ask for help because he was too old and frail to physically take care of two energetic 4-year-olds. I just needed to hear his voice. I needed to talk to someone in my family who actually loved me. The next morning, after I dropped Emma and Lucas off at daycare, I pulled into a parking lot and sat in my car. I dialed the number for Sunny Meadows and asked to be connected to Grandpa Harold's room. It took a few minutes, but then I heard his familiar voice on the line. "Valeria? Is that my favorite granddaughter?" I smiled despite everything. "I am your only granddaughter, Grandpa. That is why you are my favorite." I could hear the smile in his voice. "How are my little angels? How are Emma and Lucas?" "They are good, Grandpa, growing like weeds. Lucas is obsessed with puzzles now. He can do ones that are way above his age level. And Emma never stops talking. She asks me a million questions every day. That is because she is smart, just like her mother." We talked for a few minutes about the kids, about his health, about the weather, and then I could not hold it in anymore. I told him about the surgery, about the cyst, the timeline, the recovery, and I told him about Sandra and Roger, about the phone calls, about the spa retreat, about how they had said no. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear Grandpa Harold breathing slowly. Finally, he spoke, and his voice was different, lower, more serious. "Sandra and Roger said no to you. They will not help with the children while you have surgery. They said they cannot cancel their trip. It is already paid for." Another long pause. "Valeria, listen to me. You let me handle this. I am going to call Roger." "Grandpa, no. Please do not stress yourself out over this. I do not want you to get upset." He let out a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "I am 89 years old. I have earned the right to get upset when my grandson acts like a fool. You just focus on yourself and those babies. I will talk to Roger. Grandpa, I just want you to know that I did not call you to cause problems. I just needed someone to talk to." "I know, sweetheart, but there are some things that need to be said. And I am still Roger's father, whether he likes it or not. There are things I taught that boy that he seems to have forgotten. Maybe it is time I reminded him. We said goodbye, and I sat in my car for a long time after wondering what Grandpa Harold would say to Roger. Part of me felt guilty for telling him. I did not want to cause drama, but another part of me felt relieved. Someone finally knew the truth. Someone finally cared. I found out later what happened during that phone call between Grandpa Harold and Roger. Grandpa told me about it when I saw him next. He said he called Roger that same afternoon. Roger answered, probably expecting a casual conversation. But Grandpa Harold got straight to the point. Roger, I just spoke with Valeria. She told me about her surgery and about how you and Sandra refused to help with the children. Is this true? Roger stammered on the phone, caught off guard. Dad, it is complicated. Sandra already had this trip planned. We paid a lot of money for it. A trip? You are telling me that a trip is more important than your daughter and your grandchildren. It is not that simple, Dad. Sandra really needs this break. She has been stressed. Stressed your daughter needs surgery. She has 2 small children and no one to help her. And your wife is stressed about a spa. Roger tried to explain, tried to justify, but Grandpa Harold was not having any of it. I raised you better than this, Roger. I taught you that family comes first. Always. Do you remember that, or have you forgotten everything I taught you? The conversation did not end well. Roger got defensive, said Grandpa Harold did not understand the situation, said times were different now. Grandpa Harold told him he was disappointed in him and ended the call. The next day, I got a call from Sandra. Her voice was sharp, angry. Valeria, did you tell your grandfather about our conversation? I talked to him, yes. I needed someone to talk to. You had no right to do that. You know he is old. You are going to give him a heart attack with all this stress. And now he called your father and yelled at him. Roger is very upset. I could not believe what I was hearing. Mom, I am the one having surgery. I am the one who asked for help and got told no. And you are worried about Dad being upset? Sandra did not even acknowledge what I said. She just kept going. I want you to know that we are not changing our minds. We are not going to let an old man guilt us into canceling our plans. I have my own life to live, Valeria, and I am not going to apologize for that. And then she hung up on me, just like that. I sat there holding my phone, feeling worse than I had before. Not only had my parents refused to help me, but now they were angry at me for talking to my own grandfather about it. I had never felt so alone. That evening, after the kids were in bed, I sat on my front porch. The night was cool and quiet, and I just needed a moment to breathe. I was trying not to cry, but I could feel the tears building behind my eyes. Everything felt so overwhelming. The surgery, the childcare, my parents, all of it. I heard footsteps and looked up to see my neighbor Marlene walking across the lawn toward me. Marlene is 72 years old, a widow who has lived in the house across the street for as long as I have been in this neighborhood. We wave to each other when we check the mail. We say hello when we are both outside. But we have never really had a conversation beyond small talk. She was carrying a small tray covered with foil. I made brownies this afternoon, and I have way too many for just me. I thought you and the little ones might like some. She paused when she got closer and saw my face. Honey, are you all right? You look like you have been crying. I tried to smile, tried to say I was fine, but the words would not come out. Instead, the tears started falling, and I could not stop them. Marlene set the tray down on the porch railing and sat down next to me. She did not say anything at first. She just took my hand and held it. Whatever it is, you can tell me. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who is not in the middle of it all. So I told her. I told her everything. About the surgery, about my parents, about the phone calls, about feeling so alone. Marlene listened without interrupting. She just nodded and squeezed my hand occasionally to let me know she was still there. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I lost my husband 8 years ago. Cancer. We never had children, so it has just been me ever since. I know what it is like to feel alone, to feel like you have no one to turn to. And I know what it is like when the people who should be there for you are not. She looked at me with kind eyes. Valeria, I would like to help you. I would like to take care of Emma and Lucas while you are in the hospital and during your recovery. I was stunned. Marlene, I could not ask you to do that. It is too much. They are 4 years old and full of energy. It would be exhausting. She smiled. You did not ask. I offered. And let me tell you something. I have more time than I know what to do with. I have love in my heart that I have not had anyone to give it to for years. Your children are wonderful, and it would be my honor to help take care of them. Sometimes the people who show up for us are not the ones we expect. Sometimes a neighbor can be more family than family. I did not know what to say. This woman, who I barely knew, was offering to do what my own parents refused to do. I started crying again, but this time they were different tears. Tears of gratitude, tears of relief. I hugged Marlene, and she hugged me back, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe everything would be okay. 1 week before my surgery, I got a phone call from Grandpa Harold. His voice sounded different, more determined than usual. Valeria, I need you to arrange something for me. I want to have a family meeting at your house. You, Sandra, Roger, and me. There are things that need to be said face to face. I was surprised. Grandpa Harold rarely left the nursing home. The staff at Sunny Meadows usually discourage long trips because of his age and mobility issues. Grandpa, are you sure that is a long drive for you? I have already spoken with the staff here. They are going to arrange transportation for me. One of the nurses will accompany me to make sure I am all right. This is important, Valeria. There are things I need to say to your father and Sandra, and I need to look them in the eyes when I say them. My heart was pounding. I did not know what Grandpa Harold was planning, but I could hear the resolve in his voice. Okay, Grandpa, I will call them and set it up. Good girl, and do not worry. Whatever happens, I want you to know that you have done nothing wrong. You hear me? Nothing. I called Sandra that evening and told her that Grandpa Harold wanted to have a family meeting at my house before my surgery. She immediately started protesting. Why does he need to come all the way out there? He is too old to be traveling. This is ridiculous. Mom, he insists. He said it is important. Roger got on the phone then. Valeria, my father is almost 90 years old. This could be dangerous for him. Maybe we should just do a phone call instead. Dad, I told him that. He will not budge. He said there are things he needs to say in person. There was a long pause. Finally, Roger sighed. Fine, we will be there. But I want you to know that this is putting a lot of stress on everyone. I almost laughed at the irony. Stress. My parents were worried about stress while I was facing surgery with no support from them. But I just said, okay, and gave them the date and time. The day of the meeting arrived. It was a Saturday afternoon, overcast and gray. Sandra and Roger arrived first, pulling into my driveway in their silver sedan. They got out of the car, and I could see the tension in their faces. Sandra was wearing a crisp white blouse and pressed slacks as if she was going to a business meeting. Roger looked uncomfortable, his hands shoved in his pockets. They came inside without saying much. Sandra looked around my living room with a critical eye. This place is so small, Valeria. You really should look for something bigger for the children. I bit my tongue and did not respond. Emma and Lucas came running out of their room to greet their grandparents. They were excited because they rarely saw them. Emma held up a picture she had drawn. Grandma, look, I made this for you. Sandra glanced at the picture, a crayon drawing of a family standing in front of a house. That is nice, dear. She patted Emma on the head and then sat down on the couch, already checking her phone. Lucas tried to show Roger a puzzle he had been working on, but Roger just nodded absently and said, Very good, buddy. Then he sat down next to Sandra and stared at the floor. Marlene was there too. She had come over early to help me prepare some snacks and to offer moral support. Sandra noticed her and frowned. Who is this? This is Marlene, my neighbor. She is going to be taking care of Emma and Lucas while I have my surgery. Sandra's eyebrows rose. Oh, so you found someone after all. See, I told you that you would figure it out. There was no gratitude in her voice, no acknowledgement of the irony, just dismissiveness. About 30 minutes later, we heard a vehicle pull up outside. I looked through the window and saw a van from Sunny Meadows. A nurse in scrubs got out of the driver's side and opened the sliding door, and there was Grandpa Harold slowly making his way out with the help of his cane. Emma and Lucas saw him through the window and started jumping up and down. Great-grandpa is here. They ran to the front door, and I followed them outside. Grandpa Harold looked older than the last time I had seen him. His movements were slower, more careful, but his eyes were bright and alert, and when he saw Emma and Lucas running toward him, his whole face lit up. There are my favorite little ones. Come give your great-grandpa a hug. The kids practically tackled him, and the nurse had to steady him so he would not fall. But he was laughing, really laughing, and I felt tears prick my eyes. He hugged them both tight, kissing the tops of their heads. "Look at how big you have gotten. You are practically grown-ups now." We helped him inside, the nurse staying close, in case he needed assistance. The atmosphere in the living room changed the moment Grandpa Harold walked in. Sandra sat up straighter, her phone suddenly forgotten. Roger stood up looking nervous. "Hi, Dad," Roger said. "How was the drive?" Grandpa Harold did not answer the question. He just looked at Roger for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he let me help him to the most comfortable chair in the room, an old recliner by the window. He sat down heavily, catching his breath. "Thank you for coming," I said to everyone, trying to break the tension. "Can I get anyone something to drink?" "I will help you," Marlene said. And we went to the kitchen together, leaving the family in the living room. When I came back a few minutes later with a tray of drinks, Grandpa Harold was ready. He had been sitting in silence, just looking at Sandra and Roger. Now he cleared his throat, and the room went completely still. I asked Valeria to bring us together, because there are things that need to be said. Things I should have said a long time ago, but I thought maybe you would figure them out on your own. I was wrong. His voice was slow but steady, carrying a weight of authority that I remembered from my childhood. This was the man who had built a business from nothing, who had raised a family through hard times, who had always been the pillar of strength in our lives. He turned to look directly at Roger. "I spent my whole life working hard for this family. I worked 60-hour weeks so that you and your sister could have opportunities I never had. I taught you what it meant to be a man. I taught you that family is everything, that when times get hard, you show up. You do not run. You do not make excuses. You show up." Roger shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Dad, I know you are upset, but this situation is more complicated than you understand." "Complicated?" Grandpa Harold's voice rose slightly. "What is complicated about it? Your daughter needs surgery. She has 2 small children who need someone to care for them. And you tell her no because your wife wants to go to a spa." Sandra's face flushed red. "Now wait just a minute. You do not know the whole story. I have been planning this trip for months. I have obligations to my friends." Grandpa Harold turned his gaze to Sandra, and I saw her shrink back slightly. "I did not raise you, Sandra. You are right about that. But when you married my son, you became part of this family. And in this family, we do not abandon each other. We do not put vacations and spa treatments above our children and grandchildren." Sandra opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. She just sat there, her face getting redder and redder. Grandpa Harold continued, his voice growing stronger. "I am 89 years old. I do not know how much time I have left on this earth. But before I go, I need to know that the values I lived by, the values I tried to pass on, will survive. And right now, looking at the 2 of you, I am not so sure." He paused, taking a deep breath. "Valeria is my granddaughter. Emma and Lucas are my great-grandchildren. They are my legacy, and I will not let them be abandoned by their own family." Roger finally spoke up, his voice defensive. "Dad, nobody is abandoning anyone. We just could not change our plans on such short notice." Grandpa Harold shook his head slowly. "Could not or would not. There is a big difference, Roger. Your mother, God rest her soul, would be heartbroken if she could see this. She loved Valeria like her own daughter. She would have moved heaven and earth to help her." The room was silent. I could see Sandra's hands trembling slightly. Roger was staring at the floor, unable to meet his father's eyes. Then Grandpa Harold said something that changed everything. "I have made a decision. I have spoken with my lawyer, and I am changing my will. Everything I have, my savings, my investments, the money from selling the house after your mother passed, all of it, will go to Valeria and the children. Not to you, Roger, not to Sandra, to Valeria and Emma and Lucas." Sandra's face went white. Her mouth dropped open, and she looked like she had been slapped. Roger's head snapped up, his eyes wide with shock. "Dad, you cannot be serious," Roger stammered. "That money was supposed to... we were counting on..." "Counting on what?" "Counting on an inheritance from a father. You cannot be bothered to visit from a father whose values you have thrown away." Grandpa Harold's voice was firm and final. "This is my decision. It is done. The papers are already signed." The silence that followed was deafening. Sandra looked like she was going to be sick. Roger's face had gone from red to pale. Neither of them said a word. Grandpa Harold was not finished. "I did not do this to punish you, Roger. I did it because I want to make sure that Valeria and those children are taken care of. I want to make sure that my legacy goes to people who understand what family really means. Maybe one day you will understand. Maybe one day you will see what you have lost. But that is not my concern anymore. My concern is those two beautiful children in the other room and the brave woman who is raising them alone. Sandra suddenly stood up, grabbing her purse. Roger, we are leaving. Her voice was shaky, barely controlled. Roger hesitated, looking at his father, then at me. For a moment, I thought he might say something. Apologize, maybe. Try to make things right. But then Sandra grabbed his arm and practically dragged him toward the door. They left without another word. I heard the car doors slam, the engine start, and then they were gone. The room felt lighter after they left. Grandpa Harold let out a long breath and sank back into the chair. Emma and Lucas, who had been playing quietly in the corner during the whole conversation, came running over to him. "Great Grandpa, why did Grandma and Grandpa leave so fast?" Emma asked. Grandpa Harold smiled at her, and his face transformed from the stern patriarch he had been moments ago to the gentle, loving grandfather I remembered. "They had somewhere to be, sweetheart, but that is okay. I am right here with you." I went over and knelt beside his chair, taking his hand. "Grandpa, you did not have to do that. The money, the will, none of that matters to me. I just wanted them to understand." He squeezed my hand. "I know, Valeria, but I did it because it was the right thing to do. Money does not mean anything to me anymore. I have everything I need. But those children, they are going to need opportunities. They are going to need help, and I want to make sure they have it even after I am gone." Marlene came over, then her eyes wet with tears. "Mr. Harold, that was the most beautiful thing I have ever witnessed. You are a remarkable man." Grandpa Harold chuckled. "I am just an old man who has lived long enough to know what matters. Family matters. Love matters. Everything else is just noise." We spent the rest of the afternoon together. Grandpa Harold played with Emma and Lucas, reading them stories, helping Lucas with his puzzle, admiring every single one of Emma's drawings. Marlene made tea, and we all sat together in the living room as the sun set outside. For those few hours, I forgot about the surgery, forgot about my parents, forgot about all the stress. I was surrounded by people who loved me, and that was enough. The day of my surgery arrived. Marlene came over early in the morning to take Emma and Lucas to her house for the day. The kids were excited because Marlene had promised them pancakes and a movie marathon. They hugged me tight before they left. "Mommy, you are going to be okay, right?" Emma asked, her big eyes looking up at me with worry. I knelt down and held her face in my hands. "I am going to be just fine, baby. The doctors are going to take care of me, and when I wake up, it will all be over. And then I will come home, and we will have the biggest hug party ever." Lucas wrapped his arms around my neck. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you too, sweet boy. Both of you. So much." Marlene led them out to her car, and I watched from the window as they drove away. Then I got in my own car and headed to the hospital. The surgery went well. Dr. Patterson came to see me afterward and told me that they had successfully removed the cyst and that the preliminary biopsy results looked good. It appeared to be benign, just as they had hoped. I would need to wait for the full results, but she was optimistic. I spent 2 days in the hospital, drifting in and out of sleep, connected to machines that beeped and hummed. Nina came to visit, bringing flowers and a stack of magazines. Grandpa Harold called every single day, sometimes twice a day, to check on me. Marlene sent me photos and videos of Emma and Lucas playing at her house, eating ice cream, building blanket forts. They looked happy and safe. My parents did not call. They did not visit. There was no card, no flowers, no text message, nothing. It was as if I did not exist. At first it hurt. I would look at my phone, expecting to see a message from them, hoping that maybe the surgery would change things, that maybe they would realize how important this was. But as the days passed, the hurt started to fade, and in its place came something else: acceptance. I realized that I had spent my whole life hoping my parents would change, hoping that someday they would show up for me the way I needed them to. But they were never going to change. They were who they were, and I had to stop waiting for them to become the parents I deserved. When I came home from the hospital, Marlene was waiting for me with Emma and Lucas. The kids ran to me, careful not to hug me too hard, because they knew I was still healing. We went inside, and Marlene had made soup and bread and set up the couch with blankets and pillows so I could rest comfortably. Over the next 2 weeks, Marlene was there every day. She cooked meals, did laundry, took the kids to and from daycare, and made sure I had everything I needed. She never complained, never acted like it was a burden. She did it all with a smile on her face, and love in her heart. One evening, as I was sitting on the couch watching Emma and Lucas play with Marlene, I felt tears running down my face. But they were not sad tears. They were tears of gratitude. Emma noticed and came over to me. "Mommy, why are you crying? Does your tummy hurt?" I pulled her onto my lap, being careful of my healing incision. "No, baby, Mommy is just happy, so happy that we have people who love us." Lucas climbed up next to us. "Grandma Marley loves us. She told us so." I looked over at Marlene, who was pretending not to hear, but I could see the tears in her eyes too. "Grandma Marley," I repeated. "I like that." In the weeks and months that followed, my life slowly returned to normal. I went back to work. The kids went back to their regular routine, and the scar on my abdomen faded from angry red to a pale pink line. But some things had changed forever. Marlene became a permanent part of our family. The kids called her Grandma Marley, and she adored them as if they were her own flesh and blood. She came over for dinner several times a week, helped with school projects, attended their preschool performances. She was the grandmother my children deserved, but had never had. I started seeing a therapist to work through the trauma of my relationship with my parents. It was hard at first, digging up all those old wounds, examining all the ways they had failed me throughout my life. But it was also healing. I learned that I was not responsible for their choices. I learned that I deserved to be loved unconditionally. I learned that it was okay to set boundaries even with family. Sandra and Roger never apologized. They never acknowledged what had happened. After Grandpa Harold's announcement about the will, they simply stopped reaching out. At first, I kept waiting for a call, a text, something. But it never came, and eventually I stopped waiting. About 4 months after my surgery, I took Emma and Lucas to visit Grandpa Harold at Sunny Meadows. It was a beautiful spring day, and we had a picnic outside on the nursing home grounds. Grandpa Harold laughed as Emma chased butterflies, and Lucas showed him a new puzzle trick he had learned. "You have done a good job with these two," Grandpa Harold said to me watching the kids play. "They are kind and happy and full of life. You should be proud." "I could not have done it without you, Grandpa, and Marlene, and Nina. It takes a village, right?" He nodded slowly. "It does. And you have built yourself a good village, Valeria. Maybe not the one you were born into, but the one you deserve." I leaned my head on his shoulder, something I had done since I was a little girl. "Do you think Roger and Sandra will ever understand what they lost?" Grandpa Harold was quiet for a moment. "Maybe, maybe not. But that is not your concern. Your concern is living your life, raising those beautiful children, and being happy. The rest will work itself out." We sat there for a long time watching Emma and Lucas play in the sunshine, and I realized that Grandpa Harold was right. I had spent so much of my life focused on what I did not have, on the parents who did not show up for me, on the support I never received. But look at what I did have. 2 amazing children, a friend like Nina, a neighbor like Marlene who had become family, a grandfather who loved me fiercely and unconditionally. I thought about Sandra and Roger, probably at some social event right now, posting photos to make their lives look perfect. I did not feel anger toward them anymore. I did not even feel sadness. I just felt free. Free from the expectation that they would ever be different. Free from the hope that kept getting crushed. Free to build my own definition of family. Sometimes the family you are born into is not the family you deserve. And sometimes the family you deserve finds you in the most unexpected ways. Grandpa Harold taught me that love is not about words or obligations. It is about showing up when it matters. And Marlene, a woman I barely knew, showed me more kindness in 1 week than my parents did in 34 years. If you are watching this and you feel alone, I want you to know something. Your real family is out there. They might be a neighbor, a friend, a coworker, or someone you have not met yet. Keep your heart open. Set boundaries with people who hurt you, but do not let their failures make you bitter. Do not let their absence make you believe you are unworthy of love. Because you are worthy. You are so worthy. And to my parents, if you ever see this, I want you to know that I forgive you. Not because you asked for forgiveness, not because you deserve it, but because holding on to that anger was poisoning my own heart. I forgive you and I release you. I hope you find whatever it is you are looking for. I hope those spa trips and social events fill the emptiness inside you. But I will not be waiting by the phone anymore. I have a life to live, and it is a beautiful one. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had family members let you down when you needed them most? Have you found your chosen family, the people who show up for you even when they do not have to share your story in the comments below? I read every single one, and I know that your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. If you want to see more stories like this, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share this video with them. You never know whose life you might change. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. I am sending you all so much love wherever you are in the world. Remember, you are not alone. You are loved, and your real family is out there waiting to find you. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.